So, I saw this book at the library and I thought the cover art looked really nice. And then I read the description and I don't know, I just wanted to check it out. So, I got this at the library, which is why the sticker is covered. But I don't know anything about this. I briefly looked it up online and I think this is like a novel that was originally written, but I don't know if they like made a movie from it or they made an anime from it. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it, so I just wanted to check it out. I thought it would be really interesting. So, since I'm gonna read it anyway, let's see if I can read it aloud. So, the description says, our protagonist, an unnamed junior at a prestigious university in Kyoto, is on the verge of dropping out. For 2 years, he has made all the wrong decisions, and now he's about to make another mistake. After rebelling against the dictatorial jock president of the film club, our protagonist and his worst and only friend, the diabolical creep Ozu, are preparing for revenge. A fireworks attack at the film club's welcoming party for new members. However, a chance encounter with a self-proclaimed god sets the confused and distraught young man on a new course. A realm of possibility opens up for our protagonist as time rewinds, and from the 4.5 mat tatami floor of his dorm room, he is plunged into a series of adventures that will take him to 4 parallel universes. In each universe, he is given the opportunity to start over as a freshman in search of a rose-colored campus life. The inspiration behind the much-loved anime series, so it is an anime series. Tomihiko Morimi's contemporary classic is a fantastic journey through time and space where a half-eaten castella cake, a photograph from Rome, and a giant cavity in a wisdom tooth hold the keys to self-discovery. So I thought that was such an interesting premise. Like, imagine getting different chances to relive certain parts of your life over again and what kind of different choices you'd take. So I'd often think about this thinking, okay, if I went back in time, what other choices would I make? Would I be able to bring up the courage to do things differently? Would I be able to bring up the courage to do things that scared me, that kept me from potential opportunities that, I passed over in the past just because I was nervous or scared or I was confused and I didn't have enough information to make any kind of decision? So I wanted to read this and just give my first impression. I don't know anything about these characters, and the only thing I know about the story is, okay, this guy goes back in time and goes through parallel universes. So let's read this. And I have watched some anime before in the past, but yeah, I've never heard of this. But it's not like I watch a lot of anime now, so I'm kind of out of the loop. So the book starts. Let's just say I accomplished absolutely nothing during the 2 years leading up to the spring of my junior year in college. Every move I made in my quest to become an able participant in society, to associate wholesomely with members of the opposite sex, to devote myself to my studies, to temper my flesh, somehow missed its mark, and I ended up making all sorts of moves, as if on purpose, that need not have been made at all, to isolate myself from the opposite sex, to abandon my studies, to allow my flesh to deteriorate. How did that happen? We must ask the person responsible. And who was responsible? It's not as if I was born this way. Fresh from the womb, I was innocence incarnate, every bit as precious as the shining Prince Genji must have been in his infancy. My smile, without a hint of malice, is said to have filled the mountains and valleys of my birthplace with a radiance of love. So he kind of has a very flowery vision of the beginning of his life. It's very cute. And now, what has become of me? Whenever I look in the mirror, I am swept up in a storm of anger. How the hell did you end up like this? You've come so far, and this is all you amount to? You're still young, some would say. It's never too late to change. Are you fucking kidding me? They say that the soul of a child at 3 remains the same even when the man reaches 100. So what good can it do for a splendid young man of 21, nearly a quarter century old, to put a lot of sloppy effort into transforming his character? The most he can do in attempting to force the stiffened tower of his personality to bend is to snap it right in half. I must shoulder the burden of my current self for the rest of my life. I mustn't avert my eyes from that reality. I can't look away, but it's just so hard to watch. So he has kind of like this more black and white thinking. He's thinking of his childhood and his infancy and like this pure innocence. Everything's perfect. Oh, I'm like just a smiling like prince. And that is really cute, but I don't think it's really reality. Babies, they are innocent, but it's not like they're just smiling and perfect all the time. But now he's thinking of himself at 21 that he's just like this horrible person, and he's stuck thinking, oh, I can't change at all. And that's not true either. It might be harder to change as you get older, but you can still change as long as you break those habits and be consistent. So I can kind of see where his mindset is going, though. If he's so hard on himself, and it's when you're hard on yourself in the present, it is easy to kind of idealize the past. So I like this so far. It's said that people who become an obstacle to someone on their path to love will be kicked by a horse and die. So as a rule, I stay away from the writing grounds on the lonely north edge of campus. If I were to go anywhere near there, the unbroken horses would probably fly into a rage and jump the fence to gang up on me. I'd be trampled into shreds of soiled meat you couldn't even use to make sukiyaki. For the same reason, I am also terrified of Kyoto Prefecture's mounted police. Why am I so scared of horses? That's what I was wondering. Because even among people I don't know, I am notorious as an obstructor of romance. I am a dark Cupid costumed as a god of death who wields not arrows of love, but a battle axe. Red threads of destiny are strung around like infrared sensors, and I cut every last one in range, severing the invisible bonds between would-be lovers. So this guy has some like serious catastrophic thinking. Man, why does he think that? Let's read on. Young men and women have shed barrels of bitter tears over these acts of mine. What are you doing, guy? I'm thinking he's like making a mountain out of a molehill. It's the height of injustice, I know. When I began college, even I sometimes quivered slightly with the thought that I just might have a rose-colored courtship ahead of me. And only a few months later, though it was clear there was no need to so temper my resolve, I had even decided in my head, I will not behave like a wild animal. In the company of beautiful maidens, I will be a pure-hearted, proper gentleman. In any case, I should have had the capacity to turn a blind eye to those men and women who forsook reason to relentlessly pair off. Instead, at some point, I lost that capacity and turned into the kind of heinous fiend who delights in the sound of red threads being severed. Oh, I see. So he became embittered and started messing with other people's relationships. Okay, I take back what I said before. He is not making a mountain out of a molehill. But let's read on. Maybe there's like more to this. Broken Heart Alley, where snippets of red thread float in puddles of bitter tears, I stepped into this cramped backstreet of despair under the guidance of a detestable character, a man who is both my mortal enemy and sworn comrade. Ozu was in the same year as me. Despite being registered into the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, he hated electricity, electronics, and engineering. Okay, at the end of freshman year, he had received so few credits and with such low grades, It made you wonder whether there was any point to him being there, but Ozu himself didn't give a damn. Wow, did his parents force him into doing it? Because he hated vegetables and ate only instant foods, his face was such a creepy color it looked like he'd been living on the far side of the moon. 8 out of 10 people who met him walking down the street at night would take him for a yokai goblin. The other 2 would be shape-shift yokai themselves. Ozu kicked those who were down and buttered up anyone stronger than him. He was selfish and arrogant, lazy and contrary. He never studied, had not a crumb of pride, and fueled himself on other people's misfortunes. There was not a single praiseworthy bone in his body. If only I had never met him, my soul would be surely less tainted. On that note, we must say that joining the Ablutions Film Club in the spring of my freshman year was my first big mistake. Okay, so this Ozu guy's got some problems. At the time, I was as fresh as a daisy man. I remember how exhilarating the vibrant green of the cherry tree leaves was after all the flower petals had fallen. Any new student walking through campus gets club flyers thrust upon them, and I was weighed down with so many that my capacity for processing information had been far overwhelmed. There were all sorts of flyers, but the 4 that caught my eye were as follows: the Ablutions Film Club, a bizarre Disciples Wanted notice, the Mellow Softball Club, and the underground organization Lucky Cat Chinese Food. They all seemed pretty shady, but each one represented a doorway into a new college student life, and my curiosity was piqued. The fact that I thought a fun future would be waiting on the other side, no matter which door I chose, just goes to show what an incorrigible idiot I was. Yeah, I can see why, you get kind of curious about all these weird names. I'd be curious too. I'd just be kind of like, what's up with this? I want to see what these people talk about. After my classes were over, I headed to the clock tower. All kinds of clubs were meeting there to take new students to orientations. The area around the clock was bustling with freshmen, their cheeks flushed with hope, and welcoming committee members ready to prey on them. It seemed to me that there were innumerable entryways leading to that elusive prize, a rose-colored campus life. See, he's thinking in black and white again. He's thinking okay, this is all good, this is all bad. So I can see his mindset, developing here. I think I'm starting to understand him. And I walked along them half in a daze. I found several students waiting with a sign for the film club Ablutions. They were holding a screening to welcome new students and offered to show me the way. Thinking back on it now, I should not have gone with them, but let's all have fun making movies together, they said. And I was smooth-talked. That does sound fun. So, blinded by the prospect of a rose-colored future, I joined the club that very day. As long as it's not creepy stuff. I should have made 100 friends, but instead I found myself wandering down a path of beasts, making only enemies. Wow, what happened? Though I joined the club, I couldn't quite get used to the obnoxiously pally atmosphere. I told myself, this is a trial to be overcome. It is by boldly mingling with this abnormally cheerful group that I will be guaranteed a rose-colored campus life, a black-haired maiden, and indeed the world. Wow, okay, so he has a lot of expectations. But when you are young, when you're first going to college, you do have I don't want to say starry-eyed wonder, but you don't really know a lot and you don't really know yourself fully. So you do have a lot of hope. So, I can see this being normal. You have hope, you want to be with someone, you want a relationship, you want friends, and you're just excited and you're looking around. So, and it's okay to make mistakes. If he joined the wrong club, it's okay to realize, oops, this isn't where I'm supposed to go. Let's get out of here. But it sounds like he stayed. But I was beginning to lose heart. Driven into a dark corner, I found myself standing next to a creepy fellow with a terribly inauspicious looking face. At first, I thought he was a messenger from hell, only I, with my heightened sensitivities, could see. That was how I met Ozu. Wow, okay. I like how Ozu is described. I can really picture him in my mind. The descriptions are really well written, and it doesn't feel clunky. It flows very naturally. I'm going to jump ahead 2 years to the end of May in our junior year. I was sitting on the floor of my 4.5 mat tatami room, which one couldn't help but love, exchanging scornful looks with Ozu, whom one couldn't help but hate. My base of operations was a room at Shimogamo Yusuiso in Shimogamo Uzumika Wacho. From what I heard, it had been standing there since being rebuilt after burning down in the disorder accompanying the last days of the Tokugawa shogunate. If there hadn't been light seeping through the windows, the building would have been taken for abandoned. No wonder I thought I must have wandered into the walled city of Kowloon when I first visited the place on the university co-op's introduction. The 3-story wooden structure caused all those who saw it anxiety. It seemed ready to collapse at any moment. Its dilapidations was practically important cultural property level. And I like how all this is described. Certainly no one would miss it if it burned down. In fact, there was no doubt in my mind that this would be a load off for its landlady, who lived just to the east. That night, Ozu had come over to hang out. We drank together in our gloom. Got anything to eat, he said, so I grilled some fish burgers in my toaster oven, but after one bite he whined, "What about some actual meat? I want beef tongue with salty green onion sauce." That actually sounds pretty good. He was pissing me off so much that I shoved one of the sizzling patties into his mouth, but then I forgave him when I saw tears silently rolling down his cheeks. That May, after spending 2 years single-mindedly wreaking social havoc in the Ablutions Film Club, we took the initiative to exile ourselves from it. Wow, what are you guys' problem? Wreaking social havoc, what did you do? I wonder if they caused a scene? It sounds like they caused a scene. They say a bird doesn't foul its nest when it leaves, but we fouled that nest with all of our might, to the point that it was polluted as the Yellow River. What happened? I kept hanging around with Ozu as usual, but even after we exiled ourselves from Ablutions, he continued to be busy with this and that. If he hated Ozu so much, why did he keep hanging out with him? Maybe he doesn't hate him yet, but he will. Apparently he was dabbling in a sports club and the activities of some strange organization as well. Even his coming to see me that night was only because he had been to visit someone else living on the 2nd floor of my building. He called that person Master and had been coming to Shimogamo Yusu since freshman year. So the reason I had such a hard time breaking our fatal bond was not only that we had been driven into the same dark corner within the same club, but also he had frequented my lodgings. Whenever I asked him who this Master was, he would only smirk this obscene smirk. I figured they must just talk smut. I was completely cut off from ablutions, but Ozu, with his sharp ears, would always have tidbits of news for me as I stewed in my displeasure. We had staked what little honor we had on reform within the club, and now had nothing left to stake on anything, but according to Ozu, the protest we risked our very lives on had been in vain, and the club hadn't changed at all. Okay, so they wanted the club to change? They were protesting, and they left the club, and he seems disappointed that the club hasn't changed. Okay. The alcohol helped fuel the anger surging inside me. I was exiled from my club, just going back and forth between my room and school like some kind of ascetic. And I've had enough. I could feel a dark passion being called awake, and Ozu was stupidly good at whipping it into a frenzy. Hey, that little plan of yours? Let's go for it, he said with a strange wiggle of his creature like body. All right, then we're on. I'll come by tomorrow night, ready to go, he said, leaving with a smile on his face. Somehow I felt the feeling that I'd been expertly played. I tried to sleep, but the Chinese study abroad kids on the second floor were having a noisy get together. I was sort of hungry, so I got out of bed thinking I'd go get some Neko ramen and wandered into the night. That night, I had my first encounter with the god who lived on the second floor of Shimogamo Yusuiso. Yusuiso. Okay. Neko ramen is a ramen stand rumored to make its soup from cats. Regardless of whether that's true or not, the flavor is unparalleled. It'll probably be a pain if I reveal its location here, so I won't write too much. Suffice to say, it's in the neighborhood of Shimogamo Shrine. As I was sitting there slurping my ramen, wavering between ecstasy and anxiety over the unique taste, a customer came in and sat next to me. I glanced over and noted how strange he was. He looked perfectly nonchalant in his navy yukata and wore Geta clogs like those you might find on a Tengu spirit. Something about him reminded me of a mountain hermit. I looked up from my bowl, and as I observed this mystery man, I realized I had seen him a few times around Shimogamo Yusuiso. I had seen him from behind creaking his way up the stairs. I'd seen him from behind out on the balcony sunbathing while getting his hair cut by a foreign exchange student. I'd seen him from behind washing some mysterious fruit in the common use sink. His hair looked like Typhoon number 8 had just blown through, and the eyes set in his eggplant-shaped head had a carefree look in them. His age was unclear. He might have been older, but he could have just as easily been a college student. I certainly didn't think he was a god. He seemed to know the owner of the ramen joint, and he grinned while chattering back and forth about this and that. Turning to his bowl, he slurped up the noodles with enough force to make Niagara Falls flow upward. Before I was even done with my noodles, he was drowning the last of his soup, a truly godlike feat. After he finished his ramen, he stared at me rather intently. Eventually, he addressed me in a terribly outmoded fashion. My good sir, you live at Shimogamo Yusuiso, correct? When I nodded, he broke into a satisfied grin. I live there too. Nice to meet you. Likewise. When I left the conversation at that, he didn't hesitate to continue staring at my face. I see, he nodded. So you're the one, huh? It seemed that things were making sense to him. I was still a little drunk, but this oddly familiar demeanor was creeping me out. Could it be that he was my long-lost big brother? But I hadn't lost my big brother. I never had one to begin with. When I cleared my bowl and stood up, the guy followed, walking alongside me as if it were the natural thing to do. Then he took out a cigar, lit it, and exhaled a cloud of smoke. When I increased my pace, he casually caught up without even appearing to rush. Exactly the sort of wizardry you'd expect from a mountain hermit. Just as I was thinking how annoying the whole situation was, he abruptly began to speak. They say time flies like an arrow, but the way the seasons repeat one after the other is infuriating. I don't know when heaven and earth began, but it can't have been that long. It's absolutely astounding to think that humans have multiplied so much in such a short time. And day after day, everyone is doing their best to make things happen. Human beings are so industrious. I really admire them. I'd be lying if I said they weren't adorable, but no matter how adorable they are, there are so many that I don't have time to shower them with my pity. One autumn rolls around, I have to go back to Izumo, and the train is not cheap. It used to be that we'd spend a night in heated debates to make our decisions, scrutinizing each case one by one, but these days we don't have the luxury of taking our time like that. We just chuck all the cases we bring into a wooden box marked inspection complete. It's so boring. No matter how much of our wisdom we pour into matchmaking, the good-for-nothing guys will miss the chances we put right under their noses, and the girls who capitalize on theirs will make their own matches with random other guys. So why should we break our backs over this stuff? It's like trying to empty Lake Biwa with a ladle. With the exception of the month with no gods, I'm putting cases together almost all year round. There are some slackers who just sit with glasses of wine in one hand, picking their noses and decide by lottery, but I'm a serious guy. I couldn't make matches for those adorable humans in such an irresponsible way. I get involved in spite of myself. I take a good hard look at them and fret as if their faces were my own. I practically rip my hair out trying to come up with suitable encounters for each and every one of them. It's like I'm a marriage counselor. Is that really a job for a god? This is why I chain smoke, why I'm losing my hair, why I eat too much Castella cake. I love Castella. Is that Castella or Castella? I'm just going to call it Castella. Why I need Chinese remedies for my digestion, why I don't get enough sleep because my eyes pop open at the crack of dawn, why I've got a stress-induced jaw disorder. My doctors say I should reduce my stress levels, but how can I take it easy when a pile of people's sons and daughters' destinies rest on my shoulders? I've no doubt that the other jerks are off taking a 20,000-league sea voyage on a luxury passenger ship like the Queen Elizabeth II, sipping champagne, girls in sexy bunny get-ups at their elbows, not a care in the world. They'll laugh at me like, he's hopeless, always so hard-headed. I see you, you bastards. You're not fit to be called gods. Year after year, why am I the only one who makes such why am I the one who makes sure each red thread of destiny is tied? It's completely understandable that I should wonder how it came to this. Wouldn't you say, my good sir? So somebody just unloaded on me like this, and it was very confusing. I just walk away. What was this absolute weirdo going on about? Seriously. So it sounds like he's like all the other gods used to help matchmake and make, good decisions on like which people are best suited to be in relationships with each other, but they got lazy over time. That's a cute concept. Who are you even? I asked, stopping on the dark street. We were right where Mikage Dori turns east off Shimogamo Hondori. In front of us, Tadasu no Mori was abuzz with nocturnal life, and inside the forest, the long, empty approach to Shimogamo Shrine stretched to the north. Sacred lanterns glowed orange deep within. A god, my good sir, I'm a god, he said, as if it were nothing, and then raised an index finger. I'm known as Kamo Take Tsunumi no Kami. So no Kami means like God, right? Huh? Kamo Take Tsunomi mo Kamo. Okay, then he says it correctly. Don't make me say it more than once. It's a tongue twister. Then he gestured at the dark approach to Shimogamo Shrine. You live here and you've never heard of me? I'd been to pray at Shimogamo Shrine, but I'd never heard of a god by that name. Kyoto has a lot of shrines with ancient origins, and Shimogamo Shrine is one of the most famous. It's even designated as a World Heritage Site. This guy was rather lacking in persuasive talent. If he expected me to believe he was a deity worshipped at a shrine so ancient, it was impossible to imagine how far back its history stretched. He was either a mountain hermit or one of those freeloader bimbogami. Definitely not Shimogamo deity caliber. You don't believe me, he groaned. I shook my head. How lamentable, he said. I just walk away. Like, I just think this guy was nuts or trying to scam me. How lamentable, he said, not appearing to be lamenting anything one bit. He was sending puffs of pleasant-smelling cigar smoke out on the evening breeze. The buzzing sounds coming off the forest were eerie. I started walking briskly away, exactly, there we go, leaving the mystical man and his tobacco behind. Nothing good would come of associating with a person like that. Now, just one moment. Walk faster, walk faster. He called out to me. Start running. I know everything about me. Oh, okay, yeah, definitely start running. Just start sprinting down the street. I know everything about you. I know your parents' names. I know you were vaguely acidic smelling baby because you were always throwing up. I know what your nickname was in elementary school. What happened at that one school festival in middle school. About your blush of a first crush in high school, which of course ended badly. I know how aroused, or should I say astonished, you were when you saw your first adult video, how you had to spend an extra year studying to get into college, and how lazy and shameless you've been since you managed it. Lies. Just start sprinting, dudes. It's like, if this happened to me, it's like, dude, what is your problem? Gross, get away from me. You've got problems. Time to leave. Nope, I know it all, he nodded with confidence. Why is he still talking to this weirdo? For example, I know that you hijacked a screening to show a film exposing the detestable behavior of one Jogasaki and had no choice but to voluntarily withdraw from your film club. And I know what caused you to spend the past 2 years growing more and more perverse. Ooh, see, I think this guy was like a stalker. It's Ozu's fault, I blurted out without thinking. What? Don't defend yourself. Just the dude's like a stalker. It's time to leave. I know this is like for the plot. The guy's got to stay and talk to the god, but this isn't really normal behavior to be like, oh, that's his fault. But he held up a hand to stop me. I acknowledge the fact that Ozu's somewhat impure soul has influenced you, but he can't be the only reason. You know, that's a good point. You know, you can, while friends and the people you hang out with do heavily influence you, you do have the responsibility to choose who is around you and who influences you and what you put up with. So there does have to be a reason why he put up with Ozu, even though it sounds like he hated Ozu and Ozu was a bit of a creep and he didn't seem exactly stable. So it does kind of make me wonder, you know, the main character, how stable is he, like even before he met Ozu? The nonsense of the past 2 years flickered across the back of my mind like shadows cast by a revolving lantern. In holy Shimogamo Shrine's forest of all places, the thorny talons of my memories clutched my delicate heart, and I had to suppress an ungentlemanly scream. Wow. What's going on here? Oh my goodness. Kamo Taketsunumi no Kami looked on amused as I writhed in my private mental agony. Yeah, the main character has some issues. Like if you're having like mental agony, you wouldn't be like acting like this in public in front of some weird guy. You just leave. Mind your own business, I said. It has nothing to do with you. So I'm wondering if the main character even suspects this guy is a god, because why isn't he saying, hey, are you stalking me? How do you know like what happened at the film club? And you're a creep telling me about like porn and stuff over here. It's like, ugh. But he shook his head. Take a look at this. He took a bundle of dirty papers out from inside his yukata, and moved closer to the fluorescent light shining on a nearby neighborhood bulletin board. When he motioned to me, I entered the glow as if drawn by some force of attraction. In his hands was a thick accounting ledger Worm-eaten in spots, it sent up clouds of dust that seemed 100 years old as he flipped through it. He was licking his finger to turn the pages, so he must have been eating quite a bit of dirt. Gross. Here it is, he pointed to a place near the end of the ledger. The grimy gray page had a woman's name, my name, and Ozu's written on it. The calligraphy was so terribly dignified, it felt almost as if it had been made by a deity itself. In the fall, we gods gather in Izumo to match up men and women. You've probably heard of that. This year, I have hundreds of cases, and this is one of them. You know what that means, right? No, you don't. You're stupider than you look. It means I'm trying to decide who to pair up this girl you know, Akashi, with, the god said. In other words, it's going to be either you or Ozu. Oh, this poor girl. Or maybe she deserves it. I'm just wondering if she's like as messed up as the main character or as messed up as Ozu. Like, maybe it's a good match. But, okay, so Tadasu no Mori clamored and swayed in the night. The next day, I woke up after noon and knelt on my molding futon. Remembering what an idiot I'd been the previous night, I blushed despite being alone. A god of Shimogamo Shrine had appeared at the Neko ramen stand. Okay, so he does believe he's a god. Not only that, but he lived on the second floor of my building. Not only that, but he was going to set up a match between me and Akashi. One can only be so delusional. Allowing my loneliness to weaken my willpower to the point where I fantasize so freely is shameless behavior unbecoming of a gentleman. But actually, meeting that god felt perfectly normal. He didn't perform any miracles, no lightning flashed. There were no foxes, crows, or other divine animal messengers deferentially attending him. He just happened to sit next to me at a ramen stand. A god. It was so unconvincing that it actually ended up pretty convincing. But does that sound unconvincing? Yeah, you're just confused, guy. You are confused, and I don't blame you. That was a weird night. It would be easy enough to ascertain the truth of the matter. I could just go to the second floor and see him. But if he opened the door and said, "And who might you be?" what would I say? Or how pitiful would it be if he opened the door and said, "Ha, gotcha." My life would be one bleak self-hatred from there on out. Once you've made your decision, come and see me. I'm in the far room on the second floor, but I'd like a reply within 3 days. I'm a busy guy, the peculiar god had said. Though I was dejected from my days of endless lapse between my room and school, it was beneath me to get all flustered over this. I prayed, Namu Namu, Namu Namu, to suppress the wild ideas that threatened to expand like a balloon and float into the May sky. Oh, but he said, this guy calling himself a god, that he was going to go all the way to Izumo to do the matchmaking. That couldn't be true. I fished a dictionary out of my bookcase. Plenty of people know that during the 10th month of the old calendar, known as the month with no gods, the country's 8 million gods leave their respective territories and gather in Izumo. Even I know that. I'm not going to get into who all these 8 million gods are, but 8 million is a 15th of the current population of Japan. With that many gods, there's bound to be some oddballs mixed in, just like how even a university that boasts of its brilliant students is bound to have a handful who are quite obviously idiots. I had to wonder, what in the world do all these gods talk about once they've gone all the way to Izumo? How to stop climate change, the globalization of the economy? It's a pretty big deal for all the gods scattered all around the country to go out of their way to gather and debate for a whole month. So you'd think they'd be exchanging heated arguments on some pretty serious topics. There's no way they'd be throwing a hot pot party among friends, having a gay old time telling dirty jokes. That would make them no different from idiot college students. That day, when I looked it up in the dictionary in my room, my mind was blown. It said that by the end of the 8 million gods unrestrained disputation, couples are decided. The gods from all over Japan gather under one roof just to tie or untie red threads of destiny. That fishy god at the ramen stand had been telling the truth. I trembled with rage at the various deities. Didn't they have anything better to do? To clear my head, I applied myself to my studies. But as I faced my textbooks, it started to feel like it was too little too late to make up for the 2 years I had wasted. Being that pitiful is against my aesthetic, so I gracefully gave up on studying. I have pretty high confidence when it comes to this sort of grace. In other words, I'm a gentleman. Okay, so I mean, he's spinning this bad situation to a positive light, but at the same time, it doesn't really help him. So it sounds like he slacked off for 2 years, but I mean, if you really hit the books and just make studying your entire life, I think he can catch up. He might graduate a little late, but you know, that's okay. But it kind of sounds like he doesn't want to, and yeah, he has other stuff going on. He has the whole God thing. He's getting distracted. And so I had no choice but to rely on Ozu for the paper I had to turn. Oh no, that's not a good idea. That is, you're making bad choices, guy. There was a secret organization called the Printing Office through which you could get a paper written for you by placing an order. This is a bad idea. I'd been relying on this shady org for my every need for so long that it had gotten to the point where I couldn't make it through a crisis without getting their help via Ozu. Both my body and soul were rotting away. This was one major reason I couldn't break our fatal bond. Oh, so he's relying on Ozu for his grades and eventually graduating university. That's pretty rough. It was only the end of May, but it was already muggy enough to be summer. I had my window open as far as I could without risking someone being offended by my porn collection, but the air wasn't moving. The various secret ingredients contained in the stagnant air were slowly maturing like the amber whiskey at a Yamazaki distillery. Anyone who entered my 4.5 mat Tatami room would become altogether intoxicated. So he has some bad coping mechanisms. I don't know if I want to say coping, because I don't know if he's coping with anything. He is lonely. It kind of sounds like he's in a death spiral where it's like, okay, he's lonely, so he isolates himself, which makes him more lonely. He wants a girlfriend, but he's relying on this porn stuff instead. And him doing that makes him even more isolated and more farther away from talking to girls like a normal person. So yeah, he's just in a spiral. And he relies on this printing organization a little bit, which makes him fall behind in his studies some more, and so it makes him rely on the printing office even more. So yeah, he has several death spirals going on at the same time. But I believe in him. I think he can get out of this. Still, when I opened the door to the hallway, the cat that prowled around Yusuiso came right in and meowed at me, the cute little bugger. It was so cute, I wanted to eat it up, and I thought I just might, but of course I couldn't do something so barbaric. A man must be a gentleman, even when wearing nothing but his underwear. After cleaning the mucus out of the cat's eyes, I shooed it back into the hall. Oh, that was nice. So he does have a really nice side to him. Of course, he still has a lot to work on in his life. Once I closed the door, I flopped down on the floor and lay there like a log. I thought I might immerse myself in morally questionable fantasies, but that didn't go very well. I thought I'd plan out my rose-colored future, but that didn't go very well either. I was pissed about this, pissed about that. I had enough piss to fill a swimming pool. Then, when I discovered a cockroach trying to escape to the one piss-free corner of my room, ew, I unleashed the full extent of my rage. The unfortunate thing was crushed to smithereens. Wow, okay. I mean, that's one way to kill a bug. Since I had woken up after noon, it was already starting to get dark. Wow. The western sun shining through my window spurred my irritation on. A solitary rogue shogun, growing bad-tempered in this orangey pool of light, would have wanted to hop on his noble white horse and ride down the endless coast. But I, the obstructor of romance, was afraid of horses. Tormented by mixed and unnecessary feelings, my thoughts turned to the impending meeting with Ozu, and I felt that I should probably stop making my own life so miserable. Did I think that if I kept up this masochistic war on myself, that someday the Buddha would lower a spider's thread to me, pull me up, and pat me on the head? I was sure that at the exact moment I started climbing the thread, he'd cut it, and I'd be sent back to my 4.5 mat tatami hell for his entertainment. You know, the tatami hell, you can clean it up, wash all the pee from the floor or whatever's going on in that room, make it nice and neat, and go outside and start talking to people. Yeah. But easier said than done when you're in like a depression spiral. So let's see how he gets himself out of this. At 5 p.m., having arrived at the further reaches of masochistic fantasy, I stood motionless in the arctic wasteland of my bad mood, and Ozu came to see me. Okay, so it's only going to get worse. Your face is looking filthy as usual. That's the first thing he said to me. Yours too, I retorted in my negativity. His face really was as grimy as the toilet in the building's shared bathroom. Was the faint smell of ammonia my imagination? Two men just over 20 years old stared at each other in the hot westering sun. Their respective displeasures interacted to form more displeasures, and those little displeasures bore further displeasures, and a nightmare chain reaction that reeked to high heaven. I was sick of it. Yeah, that kind of sounds like his life right there. You got the stuff? I asked. He indicated the plastic bag in his hand. I was overflowing with garish-colored tubes. Oh, it was overflowing with garish-colored tubes. Blue, green, red? I guess we have no choice then. Let's go, I said. Man, what's in the bag? Ozu and I left Shimogamu Yusuiso and its Kowloon ambiance permeating the quiet neighborhood behind. We followed Mikage Dori and cut across the approach to Shimogamu Shrine to come out on Shimogamu Hondori. Crossing in front of the Kyoto Family Court building, we ended up in front of the Aobashi Bridge on the Kamo River. Two men with inauspicious faces, really, enough sulking was enough, looked out over the railing, watching the clear water go by, completely wasting the glorious sunset. We crossed our arms and gazed downstream. The vibrant green on both banks was beautiful as it reflected the setting sun. The dimming sky yawned overhead, and from Aobashi we could see buses and cars going over the Kamo Ohashi Bridge. Even at the distance we could sense the spineless presence of the students out for the evening on the riverbed. Soon that place would become an absolute hell. What are they gonna do? Are we really gonna do it? I asked. Weren't you the one saying yesterday that they deserve divine punishment? What are they gonna do? Sure, I consider it divine punishment, but from anyone else's point of view, it's just a prank by a couple of idiots. Okay, so maybe it's not too bad. It's like a stink bomb? Ozu snickered. So you're gonna change your beliefs because you're worried about what they think? That's not the man I entrusted my body and soul to. Shut up. The only reason he said such repulsive things was to incite me to fight because it was fun for him. Fueled by other people's misfortune, Ozu liked nothing better than to watch someone get all worked up over idiotic bullshit. It was his raison d'etre. I don't speak French. Raison d'etre. Okay, I said, let's do it. Although I despised Ozu's stupid personality, I took a step forward with him in order to be true to my beliefs. We descended to the riverbank from the west end of the Aobashi Bridge and walked downstream. The Takano River, flowing from the northeast, meets the Kamo River, flowing from the northwest to continue as one Kamo River. Students call the inverted triangle of land sandwiched between the two rivers the Kamo River Delta. The area is used throughout spring and early summer by all sorts of clubs as a venue for parties to welcome new students. Eventually, we approached the Delta. There they were, right in front of us, laughing and making a general racket, sitting on their blue picnic tarps. We grew more cautious and took cover in the darkness under the Demachibashi Bridge. Our surprise attack operation was as bold as the siege of Ichinotami, but if we were spotted by the enemy camp, all of our efforts would be for naught. I took the fireworks out of the bag and lined them up on the ground. Ozu was watching the other bank with the Carl Zeiss spotting scope I'd lent him. I lit a cigarette and the evening breeze scattered the smoke. Parents passing by with their children threw suspicious glances at us as we continued our disturbing activities. But this was no time to fret about the eyes of the average citizen. This was something I had to do to follow through on my beliefs. How's it look? I asked. Seems like all the jerks from our year are here. He. But I don't see Aijama yet. Jogasaki isn't here either. They're drinkers. Why would they be late to a party? Have they no common sense? I groaned. There's no point in attacking if they're not here. Oh, it's Akashi. The girl. Akashi is a sophomore we know. I remember the ledger that Shady God had shown me the previous night. Akashi's here? Oh, I'm excited to find out, what she's like. I hope she's, as chaotic as these guys. Otherwise, I'm going to feel way too sorry for her. Yeah, see? She's sitting on the embankment over there, pouring her own beer. Aloof as always, Ozu said. Splendid, but she didn't need to come to this lame party. Yeah, it's too bad she'll be mixed up in this. I turned my thoughts to Akashi's intellectual appearance and graceful carriage. Look, Ozu suddenly shouted excitedly. Here comes Aijima. I snatched the spotting scope away from Ozu and followed Aijima as he passed by the pine trees on his way down the embankment. The new students waiting on the shore cheered when he arrived. Aijima was the right-hand man of Jokasaki, who reigned over the Ablutions Film Club. Aijima had always bullied us. Finding fault with a film someone made is one thing, but he even pulled the stunt of lying about a screening schedule to shut us out on purpose. To borrow editing equipment, which we had to practically grovel. I couldn't forgive him. Why was he welcomed with fanfare while we had to resign ourselves to skulking around on the opposite bank? Today we would bring down the iron hammer of justice and settle this old score. I hoped he could flee the rain of fireworks in a panic and regret his past wrongdoings from the bottom of his heart. I imagined him sniffling tearfully on a sandy shore, poking at a crab. So this could be dangerous. The fireworks, depending on how close they're gonna set it off. Sounds like they're gonna just set the fireworks off right near the people. Breathing roughly through my nose like a starving animal, I grabbed the closest tube of fireworks, but Ozu held me back. Hold up, he said. Jogasaki's not here yet. I don't care if he's not there. We can still kill Aijima? Does he mean kill? Or is he oh yeah, we'll get him, maybe scare him, but not kill him? Because, yeah, I think he means, I don't think he actually means he's going to kill him, because previously he said he was fantasizing about him sniffling on the shore poking crabs. So, yeah, I don't think he wants to actually hurt him. I get that, but our main target is Jogasaki. The dispute continued on for a few minutes. We might have had impure motives, but Ozu was making sense. Aijima was practically Jogasaki's body double. It would have been stupid to use all of our force on just him. I put my half-drawn sword back into its sheath. But unforgivably, no matter how long we waited, Jogasaki didn't show up. The evening wind whipped by, and I felt a sadness collecting in the pit of my stomach. On the enemy line, people were starting to get tipsy, and their merry laughter echoed across the delta. Meanwhile, Ozu and I were curled under Damachibashi, getting wary looks from joggers and dog walkers. The clear boundary that had formed over the river between winners and losers threw some oil on the fire of my anger. If it had been a black-haired maiden under the bridge with me, I'd have been willing to endure some huddling in the dark, but it was Ozu. With the party for new club members getting into friendly gear on the opposite bank, why did I have to be cuddling with a guy with a face as sinister as Taisho-era loan shark? Did I make a mistake somewhere along the way? Was I at fault? I wanted to at least be with someone whose spirit was a bit more kindred, or a black-haired maiden. This makes it really obvious who the winners and losers are, huh? Said Ozu. Shut up. It looks like they're having so much fun. Whose side are you on anyway? I asked. Maybe this is a lost cause. I want to go drink with the freshies. So you're ditching me? It's not like we made a promise or anything. Weren't you just saying you'd dedicate your body and soul to me? Oh, that was like 1,000,000 years ago. I forgot, Ozu said. You bastard. Why are you looking at me like that? Hey, don't hang all over me, I said. But I'm lonely, and the evening breeze is so cold. You're always lonely. Eek! Eventually, imitating senseless lovers' talk wore thin as well, and that emptiness was what finally depleted our stores of patience. Jogasaki wasn't there yet, but there was nothing we could do about that. We decided to send him a cake full of dead anthropods later and content ourselves with raining on the other members' parade tonight. Darkness had begun to occupy the riverbank when we crept out carrying our fireworks. Ozu went down to the river to fill the bucket we had brought with water. Fireworks are meant to be shot into the sky. They must never be taken into one's hands, pointed at people exactly, and used to bomb a friendly new student welcome party on the opposite riverbank. They are very dangerous. Please don't try this at home. Even though we had planned for a surprise attack, just suddenly launching into things wasn't my style. First I shouted across the river to the enemy camp, Hey, it is I, mumble, and I'm about to take revenge. Do take care to shield your eyes. I scanned the revelers. Many people had turned our way, mouths gaping as if ready to ask, What the heck? If they didn't already know what the heck, I would fill them in. I became indignant. Suddenly, the figure of Akashi sitting on the embankment, hugging her beer bottle, caught my eye. After mouthing the truly apt appraisal dumbass at me, she hastily stood and took shelter beyond the pine trees. The rest of the bunch had not yet grasped the situation and just sat on their tarps blinking. Once Akashi had evacuated, there was no reason to hold back. I ordered Ozu to fire. After shooting a decent number of fireworks, the plan was to leave the partiers to their shrieking chaos and make a swift getaway. But it seemed that the guys our age wanted, in their fury, to look cool in front of the younger students, so they began crossing the river with no regards for how cold the water was. We panicked. Let's get out of here, I said. Wait, this fuse is still burning. Hurry up already. There's still a bunch left. Leave 'em. I went to run up to the bridge, but there were people streaming down the embankment. It looked like they meant to make us pay. I recognized the savage voice that screamed, You bastards! Ugh, now Jogasaki shows up, Ozu shouted. What timing? Ozu shrieked, and I did a 180, slipping past me to run. Ozu shrieked and did a 180, slipping past me to run the opposite way. He headed for Kamo Ohashi at an impressive pace, yelling, I'm sorry, as he went without a shred of anything even resembling pride. Jogasaki nearly caught me by the collar, but I brushed him aside, lithe as a panther, and ran after Ozu toward Kamo Ohashi. When are you guys going to give up these stupid pranks? Jogasaki stood on the bank scolding us as we ran off. How dare you lecture me, I thought. Maybe take a good hard look at yourself before going off on other people. My anger was so righteous, I nearly turned around, but we were outnumbered. Even if we were right, it was clear we'd been defeated by the tyranny of the majority. I had no intention of submitting to such a disgrace. In other words, we were not running away, but making a strategic retreat. Ozu had already made it to Kamo Ohashi and was rapidly moving out of view. When he needs to make a getaway, he's off like a damn shot. Just as I thought, okay, I need to get over there too, a hot mass hit my back. Ooh, I groaned. A cheer went up behind me. Apparently they had retaliated by shooting with one of the shooting me with one of the fireworks as I fled. All the various things I had done over the past 2 years went flickering across the back of my mind like shadows cast by a revolving lantern. My 2 years since entering college had been a series of futile battles, though I could state with confidence that my fight had been admirable enough to bring no shame to the title of obstructor of romance. I couldn't hold back my tears. My path had been a thorny one that no one had praised, and why would they? At the beginning of school, my brain had been rather rose-colored, but it lost those warm hues, and its transition to the blue and purple end of the spectrum is not something I will talk much about. There's not much to say on the topic, anyhow, and even if I had said things so devoid of all merit, what's the point of seeking empty sympathy from my readers? The summer of my first year, when the extremely sharp blade of reality flashed, my brief, silly, rose-colored dream vanished along with the campus dew. After that, I faced reality with a cold gaze and resolved to bring the iron hammer down on people intoxicated by their frivolous dreams. Oh, so his dream was crushed, so he's now jealous of other people who still have hope because he's bitter and he wants to bring everyone else down along with him. To put it bluntly, I got in the way of people on their path to love. If there was a lovesick maiden in the East, I told her, ditch that creep. If there was a delusional man in the West, I told him, don't waste your time. If fireworks of passion were about to explode in the South, I immediately doused them with water. And in the North, I constantly preached that romance was unnecessary. Thanks to all that, I was labeled that guy who can't read the room. But that's a misunderstanding. I read the room more closely than anyone else and proceeded to purposely obliterate the atmosphere. No, he is missing something, though. He lost his hope, so now he's bitter and he wants to destroy everyone else's hope because he thinks everything's hopeless and useless. So he wants everyone else to understand that, even though that's not true. So he's trying to convince other people of not really a lie. He wants to convince other people that his bitterness is reality. When his bitterness isn't reality, it might be like a small part of reality. You know, love doesn't always work out sometimes, but you know, we try our best and we work at it. But yeah, he hasn't realized that yet, so we'll see what happens. Like if I'm sure he will realize it because it's like the whole book he met a god who's like all obsessed about pairing people up. So I'm sure he'll learn something from him. There was someone who was amused by my battles and egged me on, a shady figure who enjoyed sparking arguments in our club, and that person was Ozu. Okay, so Ozu's kind of like a troll. Utilizing his independent information network, there wasn't a lewd rumor he hadn't heard, and while I was pouring out the oil, he spread both truth and lies, skillfully setting fires as if it were his craft. He created his preferred ambience, discordant shrieks echoing somewhere in the club as if from a bloody battlefield. You could truly call him evil incarnate, a disgrace to Homo sapiens. I don't want to be that kind of person. The Ablutions Film Club didn't have a long history, but despite that, it had about 30 regular members across all years, which made our enemies' numbers that many more. There were even There were even some people who left the club on account of our antics. I was nearly drowned once in Lake Biwa when someone who quit ambushed me. One time, unable to return to my apartment, I lay low in Kitashirakawa in the room of this guy I knew who was out of town. Once I said too much to a classmate directly, and she burst into tears on Konoe Dori. Dude, he needs to chill out. But I didn't lose. I couldn't lose. And it goes without saying that if I wouldn't, that I would have given up back then, me and everyone else could have been happy. Okay, well, just no need for Ozu to be happy though. It was the film club's organization that irritated me, first of all. Ablutions had been established with a detestable structure consisting of Jogasaki's dictatorship, with everyone else harmoniously creating films under his guidance. At first, I worked beneath him since I had no choice, but my discontent for the regime grew. Still, simply leaving would be admitting defeat, which offended my sensibilities. Thus, in order to launch a blatant rebellion that Jogasaki could see, I began making my own movies. Naturally, not a single person sympathized with me, so by necessity, it was Ozu and I filming them. The first was a film brimming with violence about two men who inherited a prank battle with roots in the pre-Pacific War period as they obliterated each other's pride with all the wit and strength they could muster. Between Ozu's bizarre performance, his expression as unchanging as that of a no mask, and my overly energetic theatrics, plus all the merciless pranks, it was an indescribably revolting piece. The finale, in which Ozu, his entire body dyed pink, and I, with half my head shaved, clashed on Kamo Ohashi, was probably worth a watch. But of course it was ignored. The only one who laughed at the film festival was Akashi. Okay, so she appreciates their weirdness. It does kind of sound like an interesting concept, but the execution was weird. Our goal with our second film was to employ the underpinning of Shakespeare's King Lear to depict a man's emotions wavering between three women, but unable to conceal the fundamental issue of having zero female cast members. The whole thing became somewhat incomprehensible and lost all connection to King Lear. Not only that, but the wavering man's emotions were portrayed with such care that it garnered a shower of curses from the women in the club and was forcibly given the distinguished title Best Hentai. What? Okay. I mean, there's zero female cast members, but I guess King Lear, their main character, liked to have some crazy internal dialogue. But the only one who laughed was Akashi. Okay, so she understands their weirdness, so she's kind of weird too. Our third film was a survival story about a man trapped in a never-ending maze of 4.5 mat tatami rooms and his journey to escape. But that ended with us being told, I've seen this scenario somewhat before, and it's not even a survival story. The only one who gave us a slightly better comment was Akashi. Okay. So I do like that because a popular trope is to have a nice sweet girl with kind of a creepy guy or an uncontrollable guy or an abusive guy, and it's the whole thing is about the girl putting up with all this abuse and creepiness, and that's supposed to symbolize her unending love, but it always felt one-sided to me and, downright abusive sometimes. So I'm glad that she's kind of on, the main character's wavelength. Even though the main character has issues, she also probably has issues as well, or at least she understands their issues and kind of has a, she's laughing at it. So she kind of has good humor about it. So yeah, she's not just this sweet girl who the whole love story is about her being a doormat to abuse and that's somehow sexy or romantic. I always hated that trope so much. I don't know why, like, it's so prevalent, but I like this. Yeah, I'm wondering who the author is. The more films I made with Ozu, the more the other members encircled us from a distance as they might a campfire, and the frostier Jogasaki's icy gaze became. In the end, he began ignoring us as if we were pebbles by the wayside. The strange thing was that the harder I worked, the more his charisma seemed to grow. Thinking back on it now, it's clear we were used to lift him up, like the fulcrum for his lever, but saying that now won't accomplish anything. Actually, I just wasn't resourceful enough with my way of life. I was so very upstanding. Following our successful strategic retreat from the Kamo River, we went out to celebrate our victory. Buffeted by the chilly wind as I pedaled my bicycle, I felt somewhat ill at ease. Leaving our bicycles, the two of us sulkily strolled Kawaramachi. The neighborhood's lights sparkled, illuminating the navy blue sky. Ozu suddenly turned off at the Sanjo Ohashi Bridge to go into the old-fashioned scrub brush shop at its west end. I waited in the dark under the eaves. He eventually came out looking frustrated. What? Did you buy a brush? No, I need to give Master Higuchi tribute, but he says he wants this elusive luxury scrub brush that can remove any grime. Does that even exist? There are rumors anyhow. The shopkeeper laughed at me. I'll just have to give him something else. You sure are burning out your brain on some idiotic nonsense. Master wants so many different things. It's a lot of work. Mame mochi from Damachi Futaba or Chirimen Zansho are doable, but then he asked for an antique globe, a banner from the used book fair, seahorses, and giant squid. And if you bring him something that displeases him, you get expelled. Always got to be on your toes. That's what Ozu said, but he seemed strangely amused. Okay, so maybe he's like BSing him. After that, we sauntered in the direction of Kiyamachi. Our retreat had definitely been strategic, so the self-doubt that arose, are you sure that wasn't a defeat, was unpleasant. The look on Ozu's face said, as long as it's fun, anything goes, but I couldn't be so carefree. The surprise attack operation on the Kamo River Delta this eve was to show the target of our enmity, our peers and seniors in the club, that we existed, but when we recalled the battle with a clear head, it seemed almost like they had been enjoying it. Our fight was not some entertainment for their drinking party. No matter how much it might have appeared like entertainment for their drinking party, our pride in the matter towered higher than Mount Hiei. Hee. Ozu suddenly laughed as we were walking. Jogasaki acts all big in front of the younger members, but he's dying on the inside. Oh yeah? Ozu put on a smug face. He's staying on to get his doctorate, but since he spent all his time filming videos instead of studying, or filming movies instead of studying, he can't get a single experiment to go well. His parents say they're going to start sending him less money, but he got in a fight with his boss at his part-time job, so he quit. Last month, he broke up with the girl he stole from Aijima. Ooh, there's some drama. He doesn't have a leg to stand on when it comes to lecturing anybody. How do you even know all this? In the light of the street lamps, Ozu smirked like Nurari Hyon, that obnoxious yokai. I can't have you poo-pooing my intel-gathering abilities. I know more about it than even your girlfriend does. I don't have a girlfriend. Well, if you had one, I mean. Ozu seemed to be pondering something. But really, I'm wondering if Ozu talks to a god. Is like the weird hermit master guy a god? Is that why he's asking him to get antique globes and weird stuff? I'm wondering. And he told Ozu, like, our main character is gonna get a girlfriend. Okay. Well, if you had one, I mean, okay. But really, Aijima is weirder than Jogasaki. I wonder. A nasty smile appeared on Ozu's face. That's because you don't know his other side. Tell me. Nope, nope. It's way too horrifying. I can't possibly. The Takase River flowed by, as shallow as the indie movies Jogasaki churned out as if possessed. As I gazed at the surface reflecting the sparkling city lights back at us, I got pissed again. The utter smallness of Jogasaki's swagger as he gathered such concentrated respect in that courtyard-sized world of ablutions. At this very moment, he was the focus of the new students, especially the girls' respect. He had forgotten the reality he should have been fixated on, spellbound as a cat given catnip. Brandishing his empty film theory, he pretended to be every bit a gentleman, but all he really cared about was breasts. They were all he saw. It'd be swell if his stubborn breast habit ended up ruining his life. Hey, your eyes are glazed over. Hearing Ozu's comment, I finally unfurrowed my brow. Just then, a girl who nearly passed us by smiled at me instead. A woman with gallant, valiant eyebrows. I accepted her gaze calmly and returned her smile with an air appropriate for a modern gentleman. She approached, and I thought she was going to address me, but shocking as it may be, she turned to Ozu. Oh, hey, evening, she said, and so on, adding in a slightly alluring voice, what are you up to around here? Just running some errands, said Ozu. I gave them space. I had no intention of eavesdropping, especially not if the vibes were vaguely amorous. As they were standing amid the hustle and bustle, I couldn't hear what they were saying, but as I watched from a distance, I saw the girl point a finger and stick it in Ozu's mouth. Well, they seemed quite close, but I wasn't jealous. Gee, rubbernecking disagreed with my nature, so I cast my gaze on the shop's lining, Kiyamachi Dori. Among the bars and sex shops crouched a dark house. Under its eaves, an old woman sat before a wooden table covered with a white cloth, a fortune teller. A sheet of paper hanging from the table was crammed full of kanji, whose meaning I couldn't fathom. Something like a little lantern glowed orange, bringing the woman's face into view. There was something strangely intimidating about her. She was a yokai, licking her lips at the souls of the people passing by. Ooh, so she's a demon? Get a single fortune read, and forevermore the shady old woman will haunt you day and night. Nothing you try to do will go well. The one you're waiting for won't come. Your lost items will never turn up. You'll fail the classes that should have been easy credits. Your graduation thesis will spontaneously combust just before you hand it in. You'll fall into Lake Biwa Canal. You'll be solicited on the street by one of those people on Shijodori. I was resolutely imagining this terrible luck. Okay, he's imagining. While staring at her, so eventually she sensed my presence. Oh, no, she is actually, okay. I wonder who this woman is. From the depths of the darkness, she flashed her eyes at me. The unearthly atmosphere which she emitted ensnared me. That atmosphere was persuasive. I considered it logically. There was no way someone giving off supernatural vibes this potent for free would tell a fortune that missed the mark. I've been alive in this world for nearly a quarter century, but I can count on my fingers the number of times I listened so humbly to another person's opinion. Maybe that was how I ended up purposefully taking this thorny path. There was no need to walk down at all. If I had abandoned my own judgment sooner, my life as a college student would have turned out very differently. I wouldn't have joined the warped film club, Ablutions. I wouldn't have met Ozu with his labyrinth character, and I probably wouldn't have branded the obstructor of romance either.
I would have been blessed with good friends and upperclassmen associates, employing my overflowing talents in full to excel in both the literary and military arts, the result of which could have been a beautiful black-haired maiden at my side, and before me a shining future of pure gold. If things went well, perhaps even that elusive supreme treasure, a rose-colored, meaningful campus life, would have been within my grasp. For a person of my caliber, such a stroke of luck couldn't be even a little unusual. See, he's lost hope. He can still do all that. He just has to stop all this craziness he's doing. Stop relying on Ozu. Get back into the studies. He is behind, but he can still try. It's not too late. But it's like he feels like if you mess up once in life, that's it, and his entire life is ruined. But like what was said in the beginning, he said that people were telling him, you're still young, you can still turn things around, but he won't listen to them. And what people are telling him is true, but he's just going off the deep end, and he feels like he can't stop himself. But he can. And now he's meeting with this creepy person, and he's gonna listen to her? This isn't a good idea. Right, it's not too late. It isn't. With all possible haste, seek an objective opinion and escape into one of the other lives you could have. No, you don't need other people's opinions. Just get back into the studying. It's not too late. Admit you messed up, and you can fix it. He's 21? He can still fix this. It's not like he's at death's door. It's not like he's 95 and he's oh no, I just wasted my whole life. No, he has plenty of life left. I stepped forward as if drawn by the old woman's otherworldly aura, but he is in a bad place. So this woman, it sounds like she's preying on that. Desperate people do they'll just fall for anything. Well, my boy, what would you like to know? This is a bad idea. She spoke in a mumble as if her mouth was full of cotton, which really made me feel like I was speaking with a wise elder. Good question. When I remained lost for words, the old woman smiled. From the look on your face right now, I gather you're terribly irritated, dissatisfied. That means you'll give me money because you are desperate and dissatisfied and irritated. It seems that you aren't making full use of your talents. Your current environment doesn't appear to be a good fit for you. Yes, that's right. That's exactly it. Let's have a look. The old woman shook my hands and pored over them, nodding to herself. You seem to be extremely hardworking and talented. I was already impressed by her keen insights. So she just flatters him and butters him up, and he's oh my gosh, she's saying the truth. But he's also really hard on himself at the same time. But rightfully so, he does. I mean, he knows he's screwing up, so at least he's admitting it, but he doesn't seem to have the strength or insight to change his life. He's relying way too much on other people telling him, oh yeah, you can change your life. But even normal people, he's not listening to the normal people. So it's he has to listen to some kind of spiritualist who's probably scamming him. Okay, just as in the proverb, a clever hawk hides its talons. Okay, I had modestly kept my good sense and talents hidden so no one would find them. But I did such a good job that I hadn't been able to locate them myself for the past few years. For her to spot them within 5 minutes of our meeting meant she couldn't be any ordinary fortune teller. Dude, she is buttering you up. What she said was so vague. It's essential that you not let chance pass you by. What I mean is a good opportunity. Do you understand? But chance is rather hard to seize. Sometimes something that doesn't look like a chance at all is one, while other times what you were sure was your chance turns out, in retrospect, to not have been it at all. But you must perceive your chance and act on it. It looks like you'll have a long life, so I'm sure you'll be able to seize one at some point. Exactly, Esso's whole life to change things around. Profound words befitting of her otherworldly aura. So he'll listen to like this stranger who's like dazzling him with like a character and like buttering up words, but he won't listen to the people in his life who's basically telling him the same things. I can't wait that long. I want to seize my chance now. Can you explain it in a bit more detail? When I pressed her, the old woman's wrinkles warped slightly. I wondered if her right cheek was itchy, but apparently this was a smile. It's difficult to speak in particulars. Even if I tell you now, your fate might change, and then it won't be your chance anymore. Wouldn't I feel bad about that? Fate can change from second to second, you know. Okay, so she's full of crap. But what you said was so vague. I have no idea what to do. Exactly, that's the point. When I cocked my head, the old woman said, with a sniff. Very well, I'll refrain from talking about the too distant future, but I'll tell you something very near. I opened my ears as big as Dumbo's. Colossio, she whispered suddenly. Colossio? What's that? Colossio is the sign of your chance. When your chance appears, there Colossio will be, she said. You're not telling me to go to Rome, are you? I asked, but the old woman only grinned. When your chance comes, don't miss it. When it comes, you can't go on idly doing the same things you've always done. Be bold and try seizing your chance by doing something completely different. If you do that, your dissatisfaction will disappear, and you'll be able to walk down a new path. There may lie a different dissatisfaction. I'm sure you understand. So, yeah. So basically what she's saying, it's not a prophecy. It's basically just standard advice. You know, if you're stuck somewhere and you have these bad habits, you know, the way to like break out and have something different happen in your life, you have to like act differently. So, you know, she's basically just saying like just saying common sense. That's it. Like very vague common sense. I didn't understand one bit, but I nodded anyway. Even if you miss this chance, you needn't worry. You're a fine person, so I'm sure you'll be able to seize one someday. That I know for sure. There's no rush. With that, she ended the reading. Thank you. I bobbed my head and paid her fee. When I stood and turned to go, Ozu was standing behind me. Playing Little Lost Lamb, are you? He said. That day it had been Ozu's idea to wander around town. I'm not fond of the clamor of nightlife, so I almost never go out. But apparently Ozu is different. This is him we're talking about, though, so he probably prowled around with a belly full of no good intentions, hoping for some obscene incident to occur. He kept saying, I want beef tongue with salty green onion sauce. So we decided to supplement our regular inadequate nutrition on the second floor of Yakiniko Point, a joint-facing Kiyamachi Dori. In between meats, I ordered some vegetables, and as I was happily chomping on mushrooms, Ozu looked as if he had stumbled on a hidden scene of humans noshing on horseshit. It's wild that you eat such creepy-looking stuff. That's fungus, you know. It's a brown lump of fungus. I can't believe it. What are those pleaty white things under the cap? What are those for? I got pissed because he was eating only the beef tongue and none of the vegetables, and I recall wrenching his mouth open and cramming one of those spicy onion things in his mouth, half grilled. Ozu is utterly committed to his unbalanced diet. I've never seen him eat a proper meal. Who was that girl earlier? I asked, and Ozu looked at me blankly. You were talking to her by the fortune teller, where the fortune teller was. That was Hanuki-san, he said, and ate another slice of beef tongue. We are good friends. I got to know her through Master Higuchi. She was on her way home from English class and invited me out for drinks. You shameless jerk. Look at you being all popular. It's out of character. Oh, yes, I'm popular. I hardly get a break. But I politely turned her down. Why? I asked. I mean, when she gets drunk, she goes around licking people's faces. Even your filthy mug? Yes, she licks my adorable little face. It must be how she expresses affection. Anyone who licks your face would contract an incurable disease. She must be fearless. As we carried on like idiots, the meat sizzled. What did the fortune teller say to you? He grinned, ready to rehash that combo. I had gotten advice on a topic of grave importance, how I should live my life going forward, but Ozu jumped to the vulgar conclusion. I'm sure it was about romance. What a waste, he added. Ew, so revolting, followed by pervert, pervert, pervert. I repeated like a broken alarm clock, disturbing my solemn contemplations. Swept up in my anger, I stuffed an underdone shiitake in his mouth, and he was quiet for a time. She said Colosseo, but I had no connection to Rome, or the Colosseum. I attempted to recall my daily life in detail, but could think of nothing that related. So maybe it was something that would have to do with my life in the future. What in the world would that be? If I didn't start thinking of a way to capitalize on it now, I would miss my chance again. I was anxious. It was hopping at the yakiniku place, and I saw people who looked so young. They had probably been high schoolers until just the other day. Someone must have been holding a welcome party for new students. I didn't want to remember, but I had once been a new student myself. That period during which I was filled to overflowing with hope for a future that would make me both happy and bashful may have lasted only a moment, but I had it, and you can get it back, dude. It's not too late. It's only been 2 years. Come on. You're probably wishing you had spent your time as a student better, huh? Ozu abruptly struck to the heart of the matter. I snorted and said not a word. Couldn't happen, Ozu said, eating more beef tongue. Man, this is why he feels stuck. You know, he's got this guy talking in his ear saying, "Oh yeah, you can't change anything." What? No matter what path you chose, you would have ended up here. No, he wouldn't have. Stop lying to him. You really think that? I sure don't. Nope, you just have that kind of face. What kind of face? A face that is rightly described as belonging to someone born under the star that makes a person incapable of leading a meaningful student life. He's just got like a hater as a friend. You're one to talk with your Nura Rihyun face. Ozu grinned. It made him look even more like a yokai. I take a positive attitude toward the fact that I was born under the star that makes a person incapable of leading a meaningful student life. I'm enjoying my meaningless student life with every fiber of my being, so there's no reason I should be getting an earful. So he's just kind of floating, like Ozu's just floating through life, and he really doesn't care about anything. The main character cares more about his life, so he should like get new friends that are a little more positive and will give him a little more encouragement than, oh yeah, you know, the way you were born, you just can't change anything at all, ever. I sighed. It's because of your lifestyle that I ended up like this. Yeah, but, I mean, that might be partially true, but, you know, we all have responsibility for our own actions and our own decisions and who we hang out with and what we do every day. But we don't have fun wasting our days on pointless bullshit. What are you complaining about? Oh, but don't we have fun wasting our days on pointless bullshit? Everything, the cause of these disagreeable circumstances I'm in is you. Okay, so now he's blaming Ozu on everything, which also isn't true. You should take some responsibility too. Anyone would be ashamed to say such a thing, but here you are declaring it for the world to hear, Ozu replied. If I hadn't met you, I would have lived more purposefully. I would have applied myself to my studies. dated a black-haired maiden, and relished every moment of my untarnished student life. That's right, I'm sure of it. Yeah, it's not good to just blame all of your problems and all of your behavior and all of your choices on someone else. Were those shiitake actually shrooms? It hit me today how utterly I've wasted my time here. Not that it's any consolation, but I think you would have met me no matter what. I just know it. No matter what happened, I would have done everything in my power to corrupt you. Gee, you can struggle against fate all you want, but it's futile. Gee, what is Ozu's problem? Or maybe he's just messing with him, you know? And he doesn't seem to really care. Or maybe he is upset, but he covers it up with like this attitude. Like, oh yeah, you know, you can't change anything. Oh, I feel kind of sad. This is kind of a sad, you know, conversation. He held up a pinky finger. We're connected by the black thread of fate. The horrific image of two men bound like boneless hands by a dark thread, sinking to dark watery depths, came to mind, and I shuddered. Ozu watched me as he continued to cheerfully eat only the meat. This rotten, worthless yokai asshole. Okay, I don't think this book has chapters like at all. I think I'm gonna stop for now. Yeah, there's like no chapters. I was waiting. Oh wait, is that a chapter end? Oh, it has like different parts. Should I wait until? Let's see. My mouth is getting kind of dry, so yeah, I'll end it up for here, and next time I'll finish out part 1. Okay, I like it so far. I like the main character. You know, he's not exactly a good person, but he does have some good sides to him, and the story, it gives you hope that he can turn his life around. You know, the first step of turning your life around is to realize, oh no, I've screwed up. And he did that in the very beginning, but now I think it's more emotionally hitting him, and he's being a little more distraught, and he's being very regretful. So if you're regretful and if you're like ashamed of what you've done, that is a huge emotional motivation to change your life. It will give you the energy to change your life, as long as you don't like use that energy against yourself to like isolate yourself further. If you can harness the energy into action, this will really help him. Even if it's painful in the moment, this will really help him in the long run. And I am hoping, you know, throughout the story, he'll be able to improve his life. So yeah, I like the story so far. So guess I'll read this later. See you next time.